All right, this is Andy McNeill, and I'm really excited today to have Eric Howerton and Andy Wilson, who do Doing Business in Bentonville podcast. But that is just the tip of the iceberg of what these guys do. And today we're going to talk about all things Bentonville. But before we do that, I want to just talk about them. And if it's okay, guys, I'm just going to do it one at a time. So Andy, I'd love to start with you. And you've done all sorts of cool things, which I'm going to talk about, and I want to get some perspective. But I thought I would start with probably what I think is the most important question. Are you still an Alabama fan, or have you matriculated over to the Razorbacks?
Oh man, I didn't see that coming. Oh, absolutely. I am. Listen, we just hit a bump in the road, and we're going to be fine. We've got a great coach. We've got a lot of great people around that great coach. So, no, I am. Definitely am an Alabama fan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you may not know this.
Roll Tide, baby. That's right.
Yeah, Roll Tide. I actually went to Auburn, and so I'm an Auburn grad. But I will say that because I teach at Arkansas, and my wife went to Arkansas, and so I've paid for tuition at Arkansas. I'm of course a huge Razorback fan, and so you've done all sorts of really interesting things, and I want to start with the Chief Resource Officer at Walmart. And I just want to put this in perspective, and then I want to kind of get your view of it. So I went and looked up some of this, and I'm hoping this is directionally correct. But Walmart grew from 76 when you took that role to 2001, 25 years. It went from $1.2 billion to $217 billion. That's 182x on revenue, which is unbelievable during that. And that's a 25% growth rate year over year. I mean, Nick Saban isn't even that good, right? I mean, right. That is a spectacular growth run. They launched Sam's in 83, the Supercenters in 89, it went international in 91, became the largest employer in 99. And then in 2001, passed Exxon as the largest corporation in the United States. What was that like to be there?
Well, it was like riding a shuttle, not an airplane, not a jet. But the good thing was that I had a base of operations, store operations, and district and divisional operations under my belt by the time that David Glass, the CEO, asked me to take that job. And the reason he asked me to take that job, because we were about to launch supercenters in a major way, and not only convert all the Walmart stores to supercenters, but also open new supercenters. And he said when he asked me about the job, I said, "Why me?" He said, "I need an operator in that chair that understands everything it takes to run a Walmart store." And he said, "That's why." And that's how I got the job, because I was operator first.
Well, one of the things I just reflect when I think about this is, one of the businesses I have is not quite 1.2 billion, but it's quite a ways away, but I would say spitting distance. And so but like the rate of change we've had over the last decade, it's super hard, right? As you grow that big, all sorts of things in the organization change, and so like, is there like a secret sauce to keeping that going that you looked around? Was it leadership? Was it processes? What do you think they got right?
Well, it was the people. And Sam taught us about the people, and he said the most important asset we have is our people. And Sam said we stand on the backs of our people. And so the number one thing, it was people. And we helped guide the process, but I had great people around me. I had a great, phenomenal team, unbelievable. And every leader, we tried to build a great team around them, and the leadership served them. And that's Sam's taught us that. So we just put those principles in place. We worked really hard. We cared deeply about the people and our customers. We worked together, and we couldn't have done it.
Well, I had this run-in one time. This is back, I think, in 89, maybe 88. I can't exactly remember the year. I was a Georgia kid, but then I moved to Arkansas right after college. And I was on a flight, and I think the flight was from Dallas to Fayetteville, but I'm not 100% sure. And it was this particular group of people that were on it. There was a bunch of Tyson executives coming back from a fishing trip, and they were still continuing their trip. So they were having a lot of fun. I don't remember who they all were, but they were all a group of executives. And I sat next to this guy and his wife. And just like a normal flight, we were flying there and no one's really talking to each other. The Tyson guys are having a lot of fun up front. And it's a small little plane. And we go through some really bad turbulence, and we turn around and we're going to circle. And sometimes on a flight, when things like that happen, you start talking to people next to you, like that normally you wouldn't do. And so the guy next to me was Jack Shoemaker, and so he and his wife were there. And he was super kind to me. I was 22 or something like that. 20, I forget even, I couldn't even, 23. I don't even remember how old. And later on at graduate school, I wrote a paper about him, and then I sent it to him, and he was nice enough to send me a letter back. And so at the time I had no concept of like what this organization was doing, because I go back in my head and I think, wow, I should have asked this guy for a job, but I didn't do that because I didn't know much about it. But I assume you knew him well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I knew him very well. And, as I was coming out of Walmart, Jack was very instrumental in my life and my career. And in fact, Eric and I had a conversation about Jack Shoemaker on Monday this week. And I was sharing a story about Jack had shared with us at a time when it was pivotal in the company. And Jack said, we have got to speed. He said, it's all about speed. We're not fast enough, and we need to be faster, reacting faster in everything we're doing. And he brought us together, and he shared with us as leaders what we have to do in order to create the speed of the company, of serving customers, the speed of delivering merchandise, the speed of making decisions. And that was one of the most pivotal points of my life because of what he taught us and how I applied that. And so, again, Walmart's success is built around just great people working really, really hard together and focus on with a single thing, and that's to build a great company.
It is, and I'm curious, and Eric, I promise I'm coming to you.
No, it's fine, man. Hey, I will sit here all day and listen to this, Andy. I'm all good.
So, Andy, then you leverage that experience into working at, and I don't know if is Soderquist the way to say it, Soderquist Leadership Center or Center for Leadership and Ethics, and then to running a company, and then to a string of advisory roles for, I guess for private equity firms. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience?
Sure. Well, Don Soderquist was a vice chair at Walmart, and a couple of years he retired, and I worked with him closely in the HR role, of course, making a lot of decisions and not getting too far out on the limb by myself without taking him with me. But anyway, but Don and we had a great relationship, and he said, when you retire, I want to open a center for leadership and ethics at John Brown University, and I want to bring companies from around the world here, leaders around the world, and let's apply these principles to them. And we did. I joined him. I was president CEO of Soderquist Center, and we worked with in 30 different countries around the world. Don and I flew to most of those countries together and to visit those places. And for 8 years, Don and I built a great team, and we worked with these companies. And it was one of the best experiences of my career, being able to work with him and learn from Don on a one-to-one basis.
That's awesome.
It was phenomenal.
Well, I mean, I like to think that leadership is the unlocking move for companies. I mean, one of the things I would consistently say for portfolio companies I work with is that, if you've got really good talent and really good leadership, it can mean all the difference. And so, Eric, it sounds like, to me, I guess from understanding your story, right out of school, you just jumped right into entrepreneurship and started a company. Do I have that basically correct?
Absolutely.
And I it's either like massive courage and boldness, or or did you just step into something and say, like, I couldn't get a job, or like, I'm just going to create my own. How did it work? And I'm just teasing, of course.
No. I mean, hey, it's all good. Like, I think it's mostly just being completely naive and seeing something and no one believed you. And when people would say no, I'd be like, you don't know what you're talking about. And so It could be total narcissism. I really don't know. Actually, I'm over here when Andy's talking about his experience. I'm like, how am I able to hang out with them? Like, and I think it's my complete narcissism that makes me not think about all the experience, because I can talk to them without feeling humbled the entire time. But anyway,
Well,
I mean,
go ahead. I didn't mean to top on top of you.
no, you're fine. I mean, I do think it was a lot about just seeing something and having relentless passion behind it. And that's not, and I don't think that that's something that's fabricated. To me, it was just a total faith and belief in what like it just seems so clearly obvious to me that Arkansas, the beautiful state of Arkansas, my first business, needed a magazine or a publication that told the story about how beautiful it is. And there's nothing out there in the market that's solving that problem. And I feel responsible and want to tell the story. And that's what I did. I mean, it was not a very good business from a number standpoint, but it was an excellent publication, which took me on what I call my own, master's degree program of where I've learned and, I learned about all the ad sales and what it takes to run a business. I graduated with a degree in photojournalism, right? And so I was just out to tell stories.
Right.
But I learned business, and then it kind of pulled me into ad agency type of work, laying out magazines and helping other people with theirs. And then I started helping people with advertising. And so my world of content and photojournalism, which is what that has been the carrying thread across all the entities that I've been an entrepreneur in, even today with doing business in Bentonville and with podcast videos and Ad Fury. There's this thing about content. Like we're constantly working on telling better stories faster, more accurately, with higher quality.
Right. And I think that, it's a super interesting path. And so you step from being an entrepreneur, then take us through how you get to the head of innovation at Walmart.
Well, so it was head of innovation Walmart for White Spider. Or for Flywheel. So I wasn't at Walmart. I was at, I started a company called White Spider as a co-founder. And we did that, again, helping businesses get into e-commerce here. We would take regional businesses and make them national companies in the e-com space. And this was back in like 2008, 9, 10, when we originally it started going. And then being here local, we were really good at full e-commerce stack systems. And we looked around and like, hey, we should be doing business with these Walmart suppliers that are all around here.
Right.
And the digital era has come. Digital merchandising is now taking fold. And we got connected with Walmart, and we really we could see the vision of Walmart. And I think it's kind of the entrepreneurial ability to go, there is a vision. There is a reason why any company, it could be anybody, is going in a certain direction. And so we really attached and saw that Walmart suppliers traditionally have been brick and mortar store based,
right?
All these, the super centers, all these things that have made up this community, but in comes e-com. And then we realized that Walmart was taking an additional leap. It wasn't about winning e-com, it's about winning omni-channel, which means that a customer can buy anywhere at the greatest convenience that they can. So that meant pickup, that meant delivery to home. That meant autonomous vehicles, all these things that we saw really clearly. And that therefore requires better digital content and merchandising on the app, the TV screens, the e-com, all these places. And so we caught that vision and set out, and we spent a very few lonely years trying to convince suppliers and other people in the community that this is so important. But then it started catching up, right? And obviously Walmart was, this is when they were investing in those towers in store, trying those things out. Walmart doesn't make half-hearted decisions. That's why it's such an excellent company. And so as they invested more in it, people were like, oh, this White Spider company is doing something that Walmart's doing, so we need to get aboard. And so we ended up building that company, sold that in 2021 to a public company called Essential out of London that was stacking up a bunch of digital merchandising companies. And we sold that. And at that time I became head of innovations for Walmart for Essential, AKA Flywheel, which is now Flywheel got bought by Omnicom, one of the big 4 holding companies. So that's kind of what that is. And
then the bug, it's contagious. Then you have to start the next company, And so
it was Andy, you probably have experienced this. I mean, like, I just dedicated my entire being to White Spider for a good decade, and everything was on the back burner. I was having ideas, but there's no way I had capacity for them. And so when we sold White Spider, I mean, they just kind of started falling out. Like really just wanted to kick off some entities, and it just felt natural, and it's just what I've fallen back into.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. Even like Jackalope Cycling is like you probably have never heard of it, but we're involved with cycling in just called the River Valley. And
Yeah.
so and and it's really more of a passion project than it is something to make money. I mean, we're trying to do good things for our community
Yep.
down there. Um, Last thing, and then we're going to switch to Bentonville. So I thought Ad Fury AI was really interesting. I don't know all
Yep.
about it because I'm not really as deep in AI as I really need to be. But how's that going?
And it's going really well. I'm just very grateful to, again, about this time last year, maybe a little bit before. I mean, obviously AI has been a crazy trajectory, extremely confusing, very disrupting. And so recognizing what it's going to be doing with retail as it kind of trickles down, like I wanted to make sure that to your point, right? Like this community driven ambition of, we've got to make sure Arkansas wins in retail. We have that is a call that we cannot ignore, and don't let any of the bottlenecks get in the way. And so I wanted to make sure that I was on the front end of that. What is this artificial intelligence going to be doing in our space that we know so well here, and we have proven our knowledge about it? And so I initiated that company, and again, it's in the content space. It's basically helping to for display advertising, both image-based and video-based, accelerating that, leveraging artificial intelligence and agentic workflows, as well as images and other videos for product detail pages or whatever retail needs. And so in the last year, we have invested a lot of time and energy and expertise and knowledge to build this really incredible team to generate this product that we now released about 2 weeks ago. It's a SaaS product with AI on the back end of it that is really producing some excellent retail specific things that no one else on the planet that I know of is focused in on it like we are.
Well, I hope you kill it, I agree with you that, and I would add so many more things in the category about like, okay, what in Arkansas, what could be the magic formula? And let's use that as sort of an inflection point to jump on to the next thing. And we'll talk about Bentonville. So, but let's start with something simple. Why did you create doing business in Bentonville? What was the genesis of that?
So Eddie and I, we weren't the founders of it. We were fortunate enough to work along the founders back then. It was started by Cameron Smith, dear friend of ours, that he passed away about 3 years ago now from cancer.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the, I would say probably the most influential person to create this vendor supplier community we have in Northwest Arkansas. He was a recruiter. He still has his recruiting firm today. His wife and is running that, and called Cameron Smith and Associates. Anyway, he helped generate this community and then Wayne Callahan, who was one of the first national account folks for a major brand here in town. Who, by the way, helped start Retail Link, the whole program at NWAC. So superbly influential person. And then Jim Schenkel as well as one of the founders there. They started doing business in Bentonville to really bring this community of suppliers together to learn, to understand where Walmart's going, and to help this community expand. And then they brought Andy, when they bring you in on it.
2017, I had a lull in my career. And Cameron
it doesn't look like that. It looks like,
I know it does.
It was like 30-day lull.
30-day lull.
And so it was like a 30-day lull, and he called me up and said, "Hey, can you come have lunch?" And because we knew Cameron and loved Cameron, and
you can't say no.
And
to
you
Cameron.
don't say no. And so I showed up, and I said, "What do we do?" And he says, "I want you to run doing business in Bentonville." I said, "What?" And I started doing business in Bentonville because Cameron said, I want you to do it.
Yeah, we used to call. I used to kid with Cameron.
Yeah, so,
We'd say, Cameron, you're known as the Godfather of Northwest Arkansas, and he'd be like, "Kiss my pinky."
Yeah.
You play along with it. He's hilarious.
Well,
I did it. Yeah.
Well, and I noticed one of the things is that when I listen to you guys on your podcast, I that you know everybody, right? Like, is somebody will reference somebody, and inevitably you guys will have a comment like, "Oh yeah," you'll make a comment about that particular individual, and
Well, we've been here 30 plus years.
Yes,
so
right.
you got to know everybody. So let me just lay out some statistics, and then I'm just curious about what you guys think the ceiling is, and then I'll go deeper into it. So. And you probably know all these things at the top of your head. And if I get any of them wrong, you can just adjust me a little bit. But Northwest Arkansas last year, their GDP of, it's from Fayetteville to all the way up to Bella Vista was about 30%, a little less than 30% of Arkansas GDP. Of course, it's got 3 Fortune 500 companies. And for a population around 600,000, that's unusual to have. Of course, plenty of other places have more, but super lucky to have what we've got there. 1,400-ish Walmart suppliers have offices there. It grew 19% from 2010 to 2020. And of course, it's experienced a lot of growth. In fact, in Arkansas itself, if not from Northwest Arkansas, and if you took out immigration, the state probably would have neutral, population, maybe even a decline. I haven't run those numbers, but I'm just doing it sort of in my head. Crystal Bridges had 800,000 visitors last year. There's 500 miles of biking trails. I think what they've done in terms of restaurants, art, amphitheater is pretty outstanding. It's still the second largest MSA in Arkansas. Little Rock's got a little bit more. I would project that it's going to take over Little Rock. I don't know what you guys think, but I'm just curious, if you look out 20 more years, of what do you think it looks like?
That's a big question, right?
I know. Or what could it be?
Yeah, I mean, okay, my perspective, and I'd love to hear yours. I mean, I see the growth here has, been on the backs of I would say those major corporations, right? And what they've started, really the cultures that they created too. I think that when you look at the original founders of them, culture setters. Amazing culture setters within the companies, which allow that to continue to blossom and grow. There's been a lot of the people that have relocated in the end. You talked about the suppliers and the vendor community. Fantastic humans, fantastic people that are coming from all types of different areas within the United States and across the world that create this really interesting blend of different dynamics and this diversity that I think is also very unique. When you take a step back and look at it, it's pretty interesting on how that, on what that is created. And there's a lot to the natural beauty. The climate here is quite tolerable. But then the supporting small business entrepreneur ecosystem around here. Even from from the restaurants, the students, the universities from MWAC and U of A and JBU, et cetera. It's just a really great place to live and work. And there's still a small town feel to it today. That has really created this vibrant community. And I would say that also those entities, those 3 major, Fortune companies, their give back to the area has been tremendous, whether that comes in with the museum and the bike trails and the NWA council, and all that type of stuff. They're very much reinvested and engaged, which provides good stability to what we're doing. Is there anything you would add to that?
First of all, I think you did a great job there, Eric, in laying it out. And the only thing I would add is that when you look at this community, what's happening is that we are growing smart and investing into our people. And now we've got a long way to go to infrastructure and some other things to catch up, but the leaders of this community are working on those things. They see those things in front of them. They're not behind, they're in front. And we're growing physically, but we're also what I call growing mentally, because of the investment and growth in the people. the university is playing a big part of that. Universities are playing a big part of that education and the programs, and continuing to pour into people, this academic knowledge that we need to become smarter.
That's right.
And the companies are doing the same thing. And so we're growing. We're not dying. We're growing physically, and I would say we're growing mentally as a community. Does that make sense?
It does. And I'm curious how you guys, you touched on a couple things I want to just go down the rabbit hole a little bit with. Let's start with culture, but I want to come back to people. I don't want to forget the word. So, but from a culture perspective, one of the things I think is really interesting, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but so the businesses I'm involved with are all across the United States. And so I travel quite a bit. And, when I tell people I'm from Arkansas, relative, if you hear somebody say, just pick some other city. Sometimes if you say you're from and I'm going to use some examples, but I realize people always have some context about whatever cities I use and can take it out of context. But if you say you're from Austin or, Aspen, or all these things have a context, and people go, oh, that's really nice. And before, I would think people would say Arkansas. Huh. Okay. They wouldn't say anything negative, but they had never been there. And this is especially true when we're talking about people that provide capital. So if I had to go to New York and talk to some people, they just didn't know the state very well. I think that's very much changed. I think that that Bentonville has a cool factor today when you go around and talk to people, and it's sort of caught fire. And a lot of times people would say something like it's a mini Austin, although that also comes up with people that may not like Austin would say something about. But if you had to define the culture, what would you say it's like?
Well, can I
go ahead,
Andy? A comment I'd make on that. I just cycled in New England 1,800 miles on my bike.
Oh, you did? Awesome.
Yeah. And I would stop at bike shops along the way and get the equipment I need and things like that. When someone, and every time I'd walk in, it's probably due to my accent, they'd say, "Where are you from?" And I'm in Maine, or wherever I was. And they'd say, "Hey, where are you from?" And I'd say, "Arkansas." The point you just made is excellent, because before, no comment. Today, every person in a bike shop that asked me where I was from, and I said Arkansas, they said Bentonville.
Yes.
No other town.
Everybody wants to know, when I say I'm from Russellville.
In Bentonville. Right, that's right.
They say, how close is that to Bentonville? That's exactly what happens. To your point. Yeah. They don't say, how close am I to Little Rock? They say, how close are you to Bentonville? Eric, what do you think? Do you think do you just say yeah, there's this cool, I don't know if there's any better way to say it, but I know you live in it. So
yeah, the vibe is excellent. I mean, I would say that there's one thing, and I've been saying this for a while, and it's not really news to anybody now, but when Walmart announced their new headquarter build, to me, that was this is another level that we're coming into. And what's still kind of under the radar is this new campus that Walmart has built. And it is just absolutely fantastic, gorgeous, state of the art. I mean, man, that makes me actually almost want to, sell my companies and go work there. Honestly, legitimately, when you go down there, and I know, because of my work, I've been out to Silicon Valley and I've seen a lot of these things, New York or wherever, Austin, and I've kind of recognized the differences of cultures in these areas of where there's a lot of innovation, technological innovation and stuff. And I knew when I come back home, we'd be missing that a little bit, but it's not that case anymore. What's actually Walmart has done from a headquarters standpoint in this campus is bar none, top notch in comparison to anywhere in the world for a company to have a campus like this. And so when we talk about what used to happen, when Walmart would have to recruit honestly pretty hard and give a lot of good reasons, and there's been a 15, 20 years in the making of, okay, come work at Walmart, sounds great, but when you land here, a little bit of a culture shock. That's not going to be what happens anymore now that this campus is here. So there is a whole nother realm about to happen that's going to be not only as, oh, it's a cool place, but, oh man, everyone wants to come and work here. It's going to increase this level of talent and people
That's right.
that are going to be moving in the area because of that.
Which I think is so important. Let me give you an
Yeah.
example. One of the things I used to do at the different companies I had is I would go to Russellville High School and I would hire as an intern. I would try to target the valedictorian. Not always the valedictorian, but like someone at the very top of the class. And I was always sort of hoping that I could turn that into an employee at some point in the future. But what was happening, and this goes back 25 years, is inevitably they would move out of state. They for things they were looking for was just someplace else, right? And they would, and so I think that's an issue in our state. How do we attract talent? And I think that one of the ways that we do that is a place like Bentonville, and so, I want to come to like how we get there, but I am curious about your view of this. I have two views. I'm just curious if you guys think this. I actually think they need a pro sports team. And one of the reasons why I've been cheering on the guys trying to set up the soccer team there, even though it's a second year team, is because there's a path going from second league into the MLS where you can see it. And I don't think we've got like a snap your finger into the NFL. If we could, that I'd be cheering for that. But like, what do you guys think about that? Is that sort of like the city's arrived?
I mean, so I know the folks that are putting on that are kicking that soccer league off quite well. Ozark
Chris
United,
and Warren.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, great people. Another
Yes.
example of what makes Northwest Arkansas unique
Right.
are good people doing great things. Great people doing great things. I agree 100%. I mean, I think that's a fantastic, innovative way to make that happen. And we need that I think that pro feel, it will just continue to build upon about this, the way of life that's here. And then it's next level. I think it'll be another flag that's being placed here in Northwest Arkansas if we can make that happen.
Yeah, I would like to see it. I also think that, the success of the university is really important as well. I was on a biking trip recently with some CEOs of very large companies in Arkansas, not Walmart, and we got into this conversation about NIL, and they had this view that you really had to support it because, it's almost like business development for the state, that it attracts people to the area, and so I don't know if you guys have a view for that, but it seems to make sense to me that we'd want the university to be very successful.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's a bedrock, one of the foundational anchors to our community, and I'm so happy with the job they're doing.
Yeah.
There, I think we reached. I think we're close to 36,000 students now this fall, and that's a new record. It seems like every year's a new record. And which I live in Fayetteville, so I get to share the traffic with 36,000 new residents. But the thing, I don't mind. I tell you, I don't mind that because I know that there's going to be a ton of those people that will live here after they finish.
That's
and
right.
They will integrate into this community, and they're great young people. We need that talent here.
We do.
And I love it.
Yeah.
And in fact, I wish they could go to 40,000 at some point, and but that's, they probably will, but I am so happy with our, and you and I are close to a lot of people that there. But to your point, we got to have it.
Yeah. And I happen to, I know, as I told you guys before the show, I teach a class there and I love walking on campus. Just just cause I'm old and they're all young and I just think like, wow, like it's super exciting, so, I think to kind of get get there, you talked to Andy about like, like they, maybe you said the word they, but there's a they working on the future of Bentonville. And I've actually heard people say to me that there's people working on a 30-year plan there. And I don't know who they are, but one of the things that I would say, and I'd like to talk about infrastructure, what you guys think about it. I happened to fly out of XNA this week. And, I find it interesting. It's not a problem. It's really convenient. I went from downtown Bentonville really early in the morning out to the airport, probably through a path that you guys know really well. And I sit there and think like, when this place doubles, that can't be the way to get to the airport. There's going to have to be, are there folks working on things like an interstate that rings it? And I'm just making that up because big cities often have that. And, how do you guys talk and interface with people that, are at the tip of the spear, whether it relates to roads, sewers, water, fiber, and other things that we think we're going to need?
Well, I can, first of all, after 20 years of the airports here, we are getting an interstate to the airport.
Yeah.
It's under development now. It's probably a year away. And so we're about 18 years behind on that or so, but we should have
Right.
got it. But there were some blind crayfish that got in the way, but they figured that out. So the thing is, our leaders here are recognizing we're behind a bit.
Right.
But they are working overtime trying to catch up from the Beaver Lake. We're fortunate to have such a great lake here that will supply water years and years in the future. So they're expanding that. They're expanding the infrastructure on the roads. So it's really satisfying. It's not there yet, but they're working on it. You see
Right.
evidence of it. It's not on paper anymore. They're moving dirt. They're digging ditches for the pipe. They're working on, electrical, all the things we need to grow. I see it happening. Do you see it?
No, I agree. And what I love is like there's strategy behind it. Like it's not just about what we're doing now, but there's, like the NWA Council is fantastic. I mean,
Yeah, they
like
are.
the people that started it were I mean, it's just like what they attend to, and they can they have the foresight to see the growth. And there's been a lot of things that have been like when you talk about, like there's been like what I feel is really unique, a cultural establishment that's been going on for years past now that are just now starting to make tangible sense to the community, not only the folks that have been here, but that are moving here. Like when you talk about the cultural establishments, we are world-class mountain biking system
Right.
here. We are world-class cuisine happening
Right.
here.
I'd agree with that too.
World-class art,
Yes.
world-class retail. I mean, world-class hotels, like accommodations, like all these things are, it's not, none of this is accidental.
Right.
About these world-class scenarios, like that all of a sudden, like just they're blossoming out. Now, on the infrastructure part, I think that there's been some surprising explosion of growth, and specifically in some really particular areas that have caused a lot, some pretty urgent things. But when you talk about this interstate system that goes to the X and A airport, I mean, like we're not talking about just connecting Bentonville to it. You're like, it's how do you get there from 412? How do you get there from Siloam Springs, Arkansas?
Right.
How do you make it easy for all this to flow there? And that's going to just create this other ecosystem of opportunity for folks.
And the airport's already expanding and about to expand again. It's on the books. So they're anticipating this growth. And but I'm encouraged by the way forward now. And you mentioned the council, which is a great group of leaders that are really in tune to what's happening and more importantly, what the future may look like. So that's encouraging.
Yeah. I think the other thing that's got going for it, I mean, when we talk about certain things, like let's just take healthcare, in the state of Arkansas, we do have a lot of issues with healthcare. We've got a lot of counties that have scarcity for doctors and specialists, but that's not true in Northwest Arkansas. And you throw in this new medical school, because I do think that people care about, broadly speaking, and this isn't any, insight. I'm sure that anybody could just guess this, but like, where the taxation is relatively low, there's available housing, there's healthcare, low crime, and and a lot of things to go do, and a lot of culture, I think is a magical formula that attracts people, because there's a lot of places not like that, and so, you guys have talked to all sorts of people, and I know you just got to your 100th episode, which is super cool because as I've done this myself, I've learned that getting to 100 is very hard. It's like a restaurant, right? Restaurants, they don't always make it, right? And so I'm curious on a couple things. Like, do you have like a favorite person that was on, or like a favorite topic that you're excited about that someone was telling you about?
Oh man,
go ahead, Andy.
You're
the one in the weeds on this one, buddy.
I'll tell you when I read that question, and I really gave this some thought, and it's really hard because I've been so blessed and fortunate to have such great guests on, and if I can't just mention one, I would have to. There would be a long list, but to just tell you that. Like yesterday, I had someone, the vice president of food for Walmart, and she was on, and we were sharing, talking, about Walmart and the future and all of that about food and the importance of food and keeping prices low, all of that. And most of my guests are in that space of really caring about their business, but listening really well to their customer. And that's exactly what happened yesterday is when my guests talked so much about the customer, meeting those customers' needs, understanding the needs in the future for customers and their clients. And that's what that's what the guests are doing, but it's a heart thing.
Right.
It's because they care deeply. And I would say that majority of my guests, I learn and walk away with so much more knowledge that's going to help me with the next podcast. So I give so much credit to my guests. And I'm humbled and blessed that we're over 100 podcasts. And when Eric and I sat down and took, I say it was a $6 coffee stop.
Yeah.
But your coffee costs $4, mine costs $2.
That's right.
But anyway, when he came to me and said, I got this idea, the Futures podcast. I went, what? We sat down and we had 2 coffees.
Yeah.
And we shared and we bought coffee. And I said, the first thing I said, okay, we have to write a mission statement. Mm-hmm. Before we even leave this, and we took a napkin and wrote our mission statement for DBB for the podcast. Mm-hmm. And I know it's a bit off your question, but it drives back to the point of the reason we have 100 plus guests. I think is because we're extremely focused on what we do.
Right.
And it takes a lot of hard work to get there and a lot of detail, as you know, but that is why we had that, is that we were so focused on what we wanted DBB to be, a continued DBB. Mm-hmm. And we give Cameron a 100%. Tremendous amount of credit. Yeah. But we're laying on top, we're standing on his shoulders on DBB. But we said, we're going to do it. And we sat there in agreement, walked out of the Starbucks, mm-hmm. and we said, this is what we're going to do. And we just went really hard in working on it. And still working on it.
Yeah, it's I think it's a testament to, right? Like Andy, you talk about, like your guest talking about the customer. We as retailing experts in this community, we have to be relentlessly focused on that customer. Sam made no mistake in having that vision, and it kind of brings me full forward to this. What's this future outlook of our community, right? We have to be so bullseyed on what is the retail customer across every walk of life, and what's going on with retail today. We cannot take our eye off that ball, despite about how wonderful the trails are, mm-hmm. or how wonderful the food is, or what's going on and how excellent the community is going. There is a significant threat that is looming out there for how customers behave.
Right.
And that's coming from technology. It's coming from devices. It's coming from telecom. It's coming from artificial intelligence. It's coming from robotics. All this stuff. It is no small feat to adhere to this changing customer demand that is happening at the most rapid pace in the world that we've ever seen. That's why I said earlier, I was so grateful that it started the AI business, because it's put me it's given me a very big excuse, as you know, Andy, right? You put money in something, well, you better lean in.
Right.
And I have watched the AI agentic news every day consistently, and spent at least an hour and a half, 2 hours reading that and watching that and navigating that to see what's going on in this space. And we have got to, as Northwest Arkansas, as this community, and as Arkansas, stand up and be bold at the same rate that Sam Walton was back in the day. as bold and progressive and innovative and adapting and evolving and intense to win this opportunity, or else it won't be as pretty as it could be. Like there is and that's what I believe that doing business Bentonville is. And that's when we wrote on that napkin, the whole video podcasting media, to be that channel of communication as to what is it that's going on between the customer to the retailer, to the supplier, to all the technology, third-party vendors, to every new person that moves into Bentonville because of this fantastic culture and campus. When they land, they need to understand that core value of it's about the customer. How do we win the customer? And that means artificial intelligence to just straight up good in-person merchandising, which is just
Right.
absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
We own that.
Well, and it's, I would say, just like one of the things I would notice about that is, I would agree with you that it's an arms race, right? I mean,
Yes.
you've got it, and it's, you can't understate it. We have an arms race for jobs. And in order to create jobs, and we will need to have the right kind of jobs. And one of the things I would say we're pretty fortunate is that in a company like Walmart, they're leaders, even in the service areas where I've been involved with companies that provide services to them. One of the things I can tell you for sure, and because we provide services to kind companies, retailers and et cetera. And, but they are for sure a leader. They are always pushing the envelope, and that's got to be contagious to everybody around Bentonville.
Yeah.
And it sort of feels like Bentonville in some ways is now, in some way, it's not detached from Walmart per se, but like it's more than Walmart, right? It's got so much more going on there. And, for me, listening to what you guys do, what I find, that I'm grateful about is you guys just get to get really cool people on that are talking about really cool things, and it seems like because of the growth, there's an endless supply of that, and so that's a really interesting thing. Last thing for you. That I'm sort of new at this. You guys are experts at it. I've been doing 100 shows plus. Anything that you would tell me as advice on doing a podcast?
Just keep grounding it, man. I think that, I think that the more content that's put out there, the more conversations to be had. Like it just honestly keeps snowballing for doing business in Bentonville. Like we're just now seeing a lot of the fruits of the labor, so to speak, from a lot of different angles, right? There's opportunities that pop up. We can do this. There's such diversity in the things that we can do. And it feels really great. It's an investment, right? And I think you know that, right, Andy? Like you invest the time. Hey, it's going to pay off.
Well, it's a passion project for sure. And so it's not about making money.
That's right.
And so, Andy, you got any last words?
I would just say that if people that have podcasts is viewing, is that you have to be a continual learner. And we have a 30-40 minute podcast, but there's hours of work that goes in behind that people don't see, of educating yourself, talking to different experts about the topic. And really, because the key is asking great questions. And because if you ask great questions, you get great content, and viewers say, I needed that. I learned from that. That was helpful. I'm going to use that. And and that's what it takes,
right?
Because we want to be excellent in our podcasting here at DBB and podcast videos. And we want to be a place where people say, if you really want information, you go there. And because the hard work is, as Sam used to say, the hard work is behind the wall. Let's go take care of our customers on the other side of the wall, but let's not let them see all that detail behind the wall. But behind the wall, if you don't do that detail, the store's not in stock. We don't do that detail, we don't have great podcasts.
Right.
And so that's what we do. And we learn from each other every day. And Eric said, hey, about this, and we'll talk about that. And he'll say, you need to meet this guy. Okay, I'm going to go meet that guy. And we're back and forth. But it's a team effort. And to make this happen. And we have a wonderful team here that's behind this wall
Yeah.
that helps us every minute
Yeah, they're
of
awesome.
every day.
Awesome.
So,
Well, I certainly can recommend your podcast. I think you guys do an excellent job. And
you.
I appreciate the insight and I appreciate the time today. And so I just wanted to say thank you. And, for anybody listening, go check out Doing Business in Bentonville with Eric Howerton and Andy Wilson. Guys, thank you.
thank
Thank
you,
you, Andy. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, Misty, you can pop back.